Didn't they do a couple years
Megan Prince, co-secretary. Frian King, secretary. Debbie Cardella,
and Lisa. We're just doing the roll call. Sorry, we're getting started. Okay. And just we're doing the roll call. So I'm Laura Pasca, and thank you. And so we have everyone present. So we have quorum. We like to do things really quick so we can get to the meat. So we're going to go through a consent agenda, just super quick. A consent agenda, what we do is we look over the treasurer's report and the last minutes, and we have opportunities to edit things and change things. And then now, if there are no objections, we're going to adopt it into the record. Any objections? No. Okay, so Megan's noting it on the record. General meetings, the minutes for December 11, 2019, and January 6th, 2020 for the treasurer's report. Everything will be on our website. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen as fast as we'd like. So if you ever need any information, please email us and we'll get it to you right away. Okay. So thank you for joining us. We are really excited to announce that we just got our letter from the IRS. No one really says they're excited about that, but we are. It says we are tax exempt now. So, yay, that's all of you guys, and that's a lot of time raising money just for that. So, thank you, everybody. If you all notice the signs at your tables, I don't want anyone to worry about the signs. It means what we're trying to do at SPC is build relationships. And we don't really know how to do that. So what we're going to do, we met with some principals in elementary school, and we talked about existing relationships, and we were hoping that SPC reps would sit with other people from outside their community. So we just kind of paired up partnership, but it's really just more of relationship building, and we don't know what's going to happen. We want your input, and we just thought we'd start casually and informally and see what you guys think, just so you can sit with someone you don't know. So that's what it is. So there are no rules, and if you're not comfortable and you don't like the person you're sitting next to, feel free. And we'll try to come up with excuses for you. It's okay. And so, Lisa, let's see. We are with the 501c3. I have a note that says Lisa. So she's like, what would I do? So with the 501c3, we had our budget that was approved at the beginning of the year, and we did not know if we were going to get our tax exempt status, but we did. So in December, at our meeting, we had Kathy present for
Kathy Anderson. She's a PE teacher at Cocopa. Yeah, and she also runs the Adopted Kids Field Day for SUSD. And so she had come and given a presentation, explained what it was. It's a great program, but they need funding for it. So
because our budget wasn't yet approved, we didn't have any donations in there or anything. So what we did was, as an executive board, there was a majority opinion to donate a nominal amount of $100, but because it's not in our budget, we are going to send an email to our SPC reps asking for them to approve. So SPC reps that are here, thank you, and that is going to be part of your job to approve items like that. So please look at that in the next week. And I just wanted to remind everyone, if during the meeting, Dr. Picard is here.
He stepped out.
Well, he'll be back. And he's here, and if we have questions that aren't covered and we have to stay on time, we have what we call meeting norms. And so just to get through everything, it's not because we don't think the discussion is important, but we do think your time is important as well. So we try to table agenda items So if you have something that is burning and you know you don't have enough time for it, there is a booklet at the front called The Parking Lot. Please write your question and your contact information, and we will follow up with you. And let's see, what else are we looking for? Okay. I was expecting we might have some more guests trickle in because we were expecting some more. So please just go with the flow and have a sense of humor when all of that happens. I think that's it. Am I forgetting anything? Okay, so committees. We just wanted to remind everybody that we put out a list for volunteers that we are seeking. And since we started in December, we have not had so many volunteers. But it was kind of a bad time to roll out and seek more help from everyone who's pretty much tapped out. So I want you all to know too, if you are interested in these subject matters, the way we do work is in between the lines of everything else. We know that volunteers are tapped out, so we try to make meetings virtual. We try to do everything kind of the easy way. So hopefully it's not onerous. So if you guys are all, anyone's interested, the contact information is over there. You have agendas with, I think you can take notes on the agenda and write those down. Okay. So
for advocacy, as many of you may know, the 2020 legislative session just began on Monday. There's already been there's already been a lot of really interesting bills. So I just wanted, if you want to find your state legislators, that's the website to go to. I know SUSD, there's 3 legislative districts that encompass LD 23, LD 24, and LD 28. Also, you've heard me mention probably more times than you care for about RTS, and that's the way for you to register your opinion on a bill, because the legislators see that and they take that into account. So there is the website where you can access and sign on. Go to click on legislative information, click on RTS, click on sign on, and then click on create an account. And once you do that, they'll set you up from the Capitol and you're good to go. You can search by bill numbers, you can search agendas. Maybe if you already signed on, you saw that SB 1082, Sylvia Allen's bill regarding sex ed, was removed from yesterday's agenda. Just lots of interesting stuff. So, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me on anything. Okay.
Brian and Emmy, did you want to?
We just wanted to basically thank all of these organizations that came together to get this intergenerational tutoring program launched at Yavapai, which should be actually starting with the actual students in the next couple of weeks. So, but it took the city and Granite Reef and some really amazing volunteers, including Margaret Serna, to kind of pull everything together, and Principal Rantala and he's gracious enough to let us pilot it at his campus. So, as if he doesn't have enough going on in school. So, anyway, so we just want to let everybody know about that.
Megan, where's Megan? Did you want to?
Sure. So Slack, if you're not on Slack, get on Slack. What Slack is it's an app that we are using for communications, discussion, all the important info between meeting to meeting. For example, channel, which is what's shown up there, was created for February's physical wellness meeting. It describes what the meeting's going to be about, and it says, what are your questions? So that way we can better prepare for the meeting, have your questions ready. Lots of good discussion areas on there. Questions from us to you, questions from you to us, it'll be great. So you should have an email. There'll be a link in the takeaways. You'll be able to click on it. You should have already gotten an email asking you just to create an account with Slack, but if you don't, in the post you will see the email.
I did want to, oh, hi Margaret. Hi. That's who I said was going to be tripping in. Yes, I know there is. So I wanted to follow up with the SPC rep agenda item from December. We had Dana from Ingleside actually was talking about she brought up how do you get volunteers in family and parent engagement. So what we did as a result, we want all the PTOs to actually talk to each other and collaborate. We know that's not always easy. Why we have Slack is because Facebook, I know a lot of people feel it's kind of like a place where all your nosy neighbors can watch over you. So Slack is a place where it's an app and it's private for us. So you can have those conversations without worrying about your nosy neighbor chiming in on it. So that's usually me. I'm usually the nosy neighbor. So that's one thing we did. So what Brian, I think, had done as email, and I mean, we had emailed all of the middle school PTO leaders and gave them each other their contact information. Because who best to give that advice but the people who are in it and doing it and what works and what doesn't. So we are also, Emmy is working, I think you guys are working on the spring roundtable in April for PTOs. And there are no new items, so we're going to keep moving. Right now, it is time for Q&A with Dr. K. There you go.
I think I need a mic. Move this side.
Actually, you know what? We are.
But
Just not because of you, but because there are others with different ears who might not hear.
okay. Good evening, and thank you for coming out. It's a nice, intimate crowd. I like that. So generally what I do in these comments at the beginning of the parent council meetings is give whatever information that I think may be of interest to you that's going on in the district, and then field a few questions. So you can be thinking about that. So tonight I wanted to highlight something that I believe is positive, but also has a challenge to it. Some of you may know, hopefully you know, hopefully you participated. We had a climate survey that went out in the fall to check for the second year in a row on various things going on in the schools, and we asked for parents, community members, staff, and students 4th grade and up to fill out that survey. So this year we had over 14,000 entries. The majority of those were students, but the company that we use, Hanover Research, is a national company out of Arlington, Virginia that does a lot of educational research and surveying. And so they disaggregate the data by those groups. So questions that we are most interested in for how parents and staff feel can be separated from the student influence of their votes, and yet there are other times when we want to see what the students say about the schools as compared to parents. So, and staff, for that matter. So, they just released their data and their analysis the day before winter break. So we had a chance to take a look at it. It has, each individual school also gets a copy of their results, and they were given those just before winter break as well. And with the suggestion that they take a look at it over those 2 weeks and then start discussing it with their staff and communities now in January. And principals will be talking about this among our principal groups this month as well. There are two major takeaways this year. Now, first of all, it was, as I said, this is the second year that we've done this. So same company, same questions, so you have apples to apples, oranges to oranges in terms of responses. And I think what I'll do is show you some of the results that I think are significant first, and then go over their overall recommendations. So the key findings, they've said, are that approximately 2/3 of stakeholders agree that Scottsdale Unified School District is headed in the right direction, up from only half of the stakeholders last year. That's significant. 61% of parents and 70% of staff members agree or strongly agree that the district is heading in the right direction. Staff members and parents also continue to express positive opinions about school leadership, and that's significant for our principals. More than 2/3 of staff members and parents agree that school administrators make decisions that support student learning. 80% that support student learning. By 80% are in tune with parents, 76%. So staff members said 80% and parents said 76%. Staff members and parents expressed significantly more positive views regarding district leaders, thank you very much, than in prior year. Nearly half or more of the stakeholders agree that district attracts and retains high-quality teachers and staff members from diverse backgrounds. And that has been an effort that we have pursued. So on that level, talking about community engagement, for example. So the questions in community engagement were, the district engages the community. So they take, it's a 5-point Likert scale going from strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And so they take the agree and strongly agree and put those together. This graph, this is the top one here, you'll see the gray line and a blue line. The gray line was last year's result. And the blue line, blue bar, is this year's. So we have the difference between 46% of the people agreed that the district engages the community last year, 73% this year. The district effectively communicates with community members, 39% last year, 67% this year. The district responds to community members' questions or concerns, 40% last year, 64% this year. And the district is transparent with community members about district decision making, 30% last year, 56% this year. That has been a concerted effort. It's been an effort to, when I started in this position, to reinstate the Scottsdale Parent Council as one of those vehicles. We have also added staff in our communications department, especially in terms of doing social media to continue to communicate with the way most people are now receiving their news and communications from us. We had similar results when the question was, district leaders make decisions that support student learning, from 35% last year to 57% this year. Probably the one I like is district leaders manage the district budget responsibly, from 18% last year to 42% this year. And that further is underlined by the passage of the override in November by 62%. So obviously that has been a real concerted effort of ours, and a concern on the part of the governing board to make sure that we are doing what we want. And so the accountability for all of our budget discussions has been front and center, and we have and that's been noticed, so that's important. So, I believe the district is moving in the right direction. This year, it's 65%, whereas last year it was only 49% of the respondents. And again, this is staff, parents, and community members only, so not students who would have a different perception on that. And speaking of that, so that's the positive, first of all. That's the work that all of us, and I say that because we work on a regular basis with the leaders of the Parent Council Board and trying to promote communication and engagement, the various workshops that the Parent Council has held here on top of the meetings, in addition to the meetings, by that, has been well received by people as being both informative and engaging. So we appreciate that very much. One of the things that presents challenges to us is that we also have questions about things such as bullying and harassment at the school level. Now this is where students, and in this case they looked at the students from grade 7 and above, as well as parents and staff members. So the question was, I have been, or my child has been, verbally harassed by students at school. The parents say 11% say that they have been verbally harassed at school 4 to 5 times at least in a year. Staff says that students would only be 7%, but students say 16%. 16% of them say that they have been verbally harassed by other students during the school year. Likewise, physically threatened by students at school. The students' response, say 7% of them say that they have been physically threatened, while only 3% of the parents and 2% of the staff feel that has happened. The student has been verbally harassed by staff members at the school building, and 5% of students say they've been verbally harassed by staff members. Now, I would say, and I don't mean in any way to make light of this, but I know my children themselves felt verbally harassed by me on sometimes a regular basis. So 5% of the students, whereas only 2% of the parents felt that their kids were verbally harassed. And of course, staff members said only 1%. Child was physically threatened by staff members at the school building. There was only 2% of the students felt that they may have been physically threatened by a staff member, and 0% of the parents and 0% of the staff. So we have some discrepancies throughout the report of student perceptions compared to the adult perceptions at schools. So we're taking a hard look at that at each one of our schools. We want the school staff to look at their numbers as well as through their PTO and site council to look at that and look at the numbers and talk about it at school. Talk about it among the staff. Talk about it in the PTO meetings. Talk to students about it. Why is it that the results show that you are not as safe or treated as respectfully as we would want, and what the parents and staff members think? What is it that's so different about them? So as a result of these kinds of data points, Hanover made 5 recommendations to us for this year. The first is maintain the district's current course. Perceptions regarding the district's overall direction, district and school leadership, and parent and community engagement all improved significantly over the past year. So that's great. The other 4 all have to do with social emotional learning in the schools. Priorities, support. So they're saying that we need to prioritize supports for underachieving students and students with mental health challenges. The study shows that even students feel that we are doing a good job with the high-end students, academic achievers, and with special education. But those kids who are struggling or have mental challenges, meaning mental health challenges, we're not doing as good a job as we should be doing. Investigate students' perceptions regarding incidents of violence and theft. Do that investigation. Increase the district's emphasis on developing student social emotional skills. That's a national movement, and it's certainly true here, and it's evident in these recommendations come from the data. And the last one, continue to support school leaders and staff to prevent and address bullying and harassment. So we have some major efforts going on with our school staffs addressing these. Luckily, they were already underway, being planned and some implemented. Of course, we have just coming up in the next 2 months, we have 3 different sets of trainings going on with school staffs. The first is called SWIS training, and SWIS stands for School-Wide Information Systems. And they teach schools the data collection system that we use to help collect, summarize, and use student behavioral data. And we are training administrators and certain staff, key staff members at schools in that area. PBIS is our movement at almost all schools, but we find that some schools are more using it with fidelity more than others.
What is it?
It's Positive Behavior Intervention System.
And supports.
Support. Thank you. Support. Years ago, when it was first introduced in the district where I was at that time, it was mostly about making sure that you are giving positive reinforcements for kids and not just correcting the mistakes. But it also involves a great deal of helping kids understand expectations and modeling positive behavior. It also has to do with, people have been talking about restorative justice, meaning give kids a chance. When 2 kids get into a squabble, give them the tools and the opportunity to calm down together, talk to one another about it, and settle their differences through discussion and a little bit of empathy towards the other student. Empathy is not something that we teach real well in schools, and so there's a growth in that. Getting people to understand how other kids are feeling is important. And so we are doing assessments at each one of the schools to find out where they are in these programs, and then we'll begin to do professional development that is differentiated by according to where they are, how effective they're using PBIS at their schools right now. So they're using, it's also a multi-tiered system. Support is a grant that we had, and we're still using that at the end of this year. So in that case, it'll be the PBIS teams at each school will be the target audience. Yes, I can. And then thirdly, we have student assistance programs, which are adult-led student support systems to help kids understand or overcome barriers through positive coping skills. Student support systems serve a wide variety of things. So we had already had these on the calendar moving forward, and the Hanover study shows that we're on the right track. Now this is consistent. Many of these findings are consistent from last year, so yes, we took those seriously, and now that we see it in the second year, there will be some comparison of the years like we did with the community engagement and so forth. But at any rate, we know that it continues to be an issue. When students are uncomfortable or afraid, they're not learning. So we have to do what we can to resolve issues that sometimes come from outside of the school, sometimes occur within the school, and we need to help kids with coping skills and to that degree even more serious problems that are occurring, have the right people on staff. We are almost fully staffed with school psychologists this year, whereas we were a long way from it last year, and we have been adding social workers. For example, Tonalea and Coronado received the state grant for a full-time social worker at each of those schools, and we have reached an agreement with the Watts School of Social Work at ASU to host their people in their practicum, social work practicum, at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. So we'll have social work students working with our social workers, but it's more adults who are focused on those social emotional skills for kids. So we are addressing those, and the data says we should be. So I've been asked if I can briefly talk about the superintendent interview process. So the job was posted and closed on Friday of last week. The search firm will be bringing the applications for those people who meet the qualifications to the governing board on January 30th. They will review those and hopefully come up with a list of finalist candidates that they want to interview. With those applications will be videos, so it won't just be a paper screen, but they'll get to view videos as well of candidates. And then the finalists will be interviewed. Right now we've scheduled that for February 21st. In a perfect world, the board would interview, and the committees, I'll talk about the committees in a minute, will interview, and then the board will deliberate, and sometime that evening decide on a candidate they'd like to offer a contract to. In many superintendent searches, that last step takes longer than people expect, either because the board needs more information, or the person that they kind of like wants to negotiate some things that the board needs more time to talk about. But we certainly hope by the end of February, or certainly by spring break, that the board will have a superintendent to start on July 1st under contract. That's the hope. Now, the interview process will be, the board will interview the finalists, and there'll be 5 committees. The search firm, this is a pretty strenuous day, but the days of superintendents sometimes are strenuous. So there are 5 committees. One, there is a committee made up of community/parents. Each of these are 10-member committees. The board members are asked to name one person from the community to serve on that, somebody that they know they like to have people who are influential in the community. And then the other 5 members will come from parent council. And Laura, the president, will be chairing that committee, and they'll be filling that. Looking at, in all of our committees, we will be looking at both a demographic and a grade level diversity for the committees, so that we have all the areas of the district that are represented. The second committee is an administrative committee, which will include cabinet members, principals, and district office administrators. The third will be teachers. The fourth will be classified employees. Those are non-certified employees from around the valley, from around the district, of different operations and school support teams. And then the fifth committee is students. So high school students. So we have asked Kaylee Patel at Saguaro High School, who is a senior and is president of the Superintendent's Advisory Group, to put together a team of 2 students from each high school. So we'll have 10 and we'll have that diversity. And she has already sent an email to each of the 5 high school principals. I will tell you, we're in this business, so we shouldn't be amazed, but yet we always are amazed by these kids. When I wrote to Kaylee to ask her if she would be willing to serve on the committee and, in fact, to chair the committee, she wrote back and appropriately said she was humbled and honored, and then she started asking me questions on the email. And the questions were mature, well thought out, insightful. I'm just hoping that our administrators ask the same kinds of questions.
Maybe she'd like the job.
She could probably do it. She's a senior at the Math Science Academy. She is president of the Robotics Club, and she has been accepted to Tufts, which is board member Kravitz is an alumna.
Yes.
Of Tufts and a daughter there.
Yeah. Well, she graduated.
Oh, she graduated.
With honors.
Do you know Kaylee?
What?
Did you have any influence on Kaylee?
No, I didn't. I
So
didn't.
excellent school in the Boston area, as there are so many there, but great environment. So those are the committees. So the candidates will come in, and the board will decide on the 30th how many finalist candidates to be interviewed. Generally, the search firms like there to be less than 5 or less maybe, but we're talking about each candidate. We'll do a round robin through those all that day. It'll be a full day. So each candidate will go through 6 interviews of approximately an hour.
How many applicants did you get?
I didn't say. Search firm has not said how many exactly. He did say it was better than at one time he thought it would be in terms of numbers. Early on in the process.
Is now a bad time to say we're on Facebook Live?
Yeah.
That's right.
Early on in the process, you don't get very many applications, and so they're used to that. But yet they kind of know how they should trickle in. But apparently we got a lot at the end. I think they were reading the Hanover study.
Yeah.
I have the worst job in the world to move on.
Which is why I asked Laura to run the community parent interview team, because I know she runs a tight ship.
Well, we're actually 10 minutes behind, but for you, it's totally worth it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We actually, we're running. Okay. When I said be prepared to have a sense of humor, before Francine, I'm going to go on the next. We have it's going to get serious in here. So before it gets serious in here, I'd like to introduce someone who's going to help us. I don't know, I want to say connect, but it seems so awkward. But connect, I guess. Margaret Serna, who's the executive director for Title I in SUSD, is going to help us with some icebreakers. And go really quickly. I'm not saying I have to go quickly.
I will go quickly, and I will move everybody.
Also, if you could use the mic, even though I don't.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Margaret Serna, and I have been in Scottsdale. This is my 23rd year, but my 43rd year as an educator. Okay, everybody has to say, you don't look that old. Okay? Well, anyway, I know that tonight is a very serious subject, and when Laura asked me if I could do something to kind of get us to feel good about ourselves and feel good about each other and to be quick. So I want to do that. I was a principal at Tavon Elementary School for 22 years. unheard of in Scottsdale, right? And I'm still having withdrawals, but I really love my new job. But one of the reasons, we were a title school that now is an A-label, A-plus school. We're a school that beats the odds in every way you could possibly imagine. And if you would ask me what is one of the reasons that that school excels, it's because when you have leadership for so long and teachers that stay for so long, you build relationships. And it used to be where the 3 R's for school were reading, writing, arithmetic. Well, now there's a 4th, and that's relationships. And with the issues that we're having with our youth and the issues that we're having in our country, it's pretty obvious that we need to work on this. So tonight we're gonna learn about 3 different concepts. Building relationships, being kind, having empathy, and having a voice. And when we see some of our children that have been in trauma or having issues belonging, you're gonna find they don't have the relationships. Maybe they haven't encountered somebody that shows them kindness, maybe not any empathy. That's where a lot of relationships between students that go sour. They don't know how to be empathetic of each other. And most of all, our children that are having issues, they've lost their voice. So we're gonna do an activity where you're gonna experience building a relationship, hopefully kindness, empathy, and learn what it's like not to have a voice. So this is gonna be the direction. Is everybody ready? Come on, let's look alive, people. Okay, now, starting right here, we're going to get in line according to our birth date. But this is a little caveat, okay? No one can speak a word. You have no voice. Yeah, starting from your month, starting if we have a New Year's baby, all the way to a New Year's Eve baby on December the 31st. So, you can all get up, come on up. Nobody talks. If they do, they go to the corner. I'm watching. Looking good. When you're where you're supposed to be, give me a thumbs up. All right, let's see how you did. Are you ready? Just tell us when your birth date is.
Last Wednesday, January 8th.
January 28th.
February 8th.
March 7th.
March 10th,
March 21st.
March 26th, May 9th, May 14th, May 15th, May 14th. That's okay.
May 5th.
May 24th,
May 27th.
May 28th.
I was just going for the month.
May 7th. Sorry.
May 7th? Okay, that's okay.
June 23rd. June 27th.
July 13th.
July 18th.
July 27th.
July 15th.
August 3rd.
August 11th.
August 16th.
September 18th. September the 8th.
October 24th.
December 2nd.
December 6th. November 14th. November 26th.
December 15th.
Okay.
Were you guys December? Okay, let's fix this.
Okay, now this is what I want you to do. With the people that were born the same month you were born, I want you to talk about the reason you're here tonight. What is the reason that you took time from watching Law and Order, spending time with your kids? What motivates you to be here tonight? And you have about 1 minute. Go. Only with the people on your birthday.
I have three of them on the side. Nice. So I will advance. I'll have the full spread of that area. And then when the I'll have fun at I'll be there. I was there at lunch, but I was also being on the board,
She's done great.
Is she your daughter?
No, I wish. She was my daughter. So she's got a soft, we have a soft spot.
Yeah, good. All right. Now, 1 minute. You got about another 15 seconds. February joined January. Okay, time. All eyes on me. Is this March? All eyes on me. Come on, March. All right. So, now the next part is everybody go back to your seat. Say goodbye to your friends. All right, so I'm only going to ask maybe 3 people to share what the sum of what the group said. Where's my March? Somebody from my March group. That was huge.
March was
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about why the reasons they were here?
Well, I'm thrilled that we had a new parent that just moved to the area. Where'd she go? From New Orleans.
Yeah.
She has a 10th grade daughter at Arcadia, so please welcome her. But most of this, I got a sense of community. They wanted to bond with other parents and kind of get to know each other and be advocates for their kids.
All right. How about June? Where's a June person? Why? What was the gist?
There were only 2 of us.
That's okay.
We both basically had the same thing in common. We do a lot of things at the school.
What school?
I'm at Cheyenne Traditional School. She's at 3. Hopi, Ingleside, and Arcadia. Where'd she go? My teammate. Anyway, she must have left. But anyway, she's got 4 kids at 3 different schools. And so we both just wanted to be able to step out of the school community into someplace else and kind of get a feel for that and then see where the direction of the school systems are.
Sounds great. How about a July birthday? Come on, July, don't be shy. We're Leos. All right.
We all had different reasons, which I think is so interesting about the exercise. Some of us were here specifically because the speaker was so intriguing today. Others were interested in the inner workings of the school district and are just parent volunteers as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Everybody, pat yourself on the back. You're awesome. So, I don't see you patting yourselves on the back. One thing as a teacher, I know you hold everybody accountable, so let's all pat ourselves on the back. So tell me, did you just build a relationship with somebody you didn't know? Yes. I saw lots of kindness happening up here. There were people that I don't know where I go, I don't know what I do. And there was one that kind of became the director. With long hair over here working with November, December. Who was that? Was that you? Raise your hand. Showing lots of kindness. She was looking for people that were lost and was trying to help them. Oh, you were the one that was lost.
It was a confusion. It wasn't so much leadership.
So, did we see kindness? Yes. Did we see empathy? Yeah. Nobody wanted to see anybody get lost. And you know what I saw right away? When we were going and somebody that was supposed to be in November but was in December, right away the Novembers go, come on over here. Empathy. And most of all, I want you to think about how it felt not having a voice. It was hard. And when our kids don't have a voice, then they can't ask for what they need. So we have to be trained as adults and people that care about them how to read body language, how to always have our eye on the prize. And who's the prize? Our children. So, who can tell me what the 4 words were? Anybody?
Yep.
Ooh, if I had a sticker, I'd give you one. Okay, so I promised it would be short. I hope you enjoyed it. We got a little bit of exercise. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do for the Scottsdale community. And all my career has been in Title I. It's all been in South Scottsdale, but I am so enjoying getting to know parents and the kids and everybody from all across the district, because we are all one community. We're only as strong as our best school, and we all are as weak as our struggling schools. So with that, let's go on to our guest speaker. Let's clap. All right, thank you.
As you all know, this is Francine. Thank you, Margaret. Transitions aren't my thing. This is Francine.
It's all good.
This is Francine Sumner from Kid in the Corner.
Thank you. So one quick question, Mark. So do I just right arrow it or something?
So it's not he said it was a PDF. It's not a PDF. So it's not gonna.
Do anything with it?
Hey,
Okay. So what do I do?
just press that.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Francine Sumner, and I'm from an organization called Kid in the Corner. I know some of you, and some of you have heard my presentation before, so bear with me because we're going to go through it again. But based on all the things that I have just heard, I think it's really important that we hear it again and again and again. I wasn't really surprised when I heard some of the statistics where kids were saying, I have been bullied, or I feel attacked, or I feel this or that, and parents are saying, I don't know about it. Because that's exactly what we're finding. Peers are talking to peers, they're not necessarily talking to their parents, and their parents may not be their safe person to talk to, and that may be another reason why parents don't know. But I'm not surprised at anything I've heard so far. So Kid in the Corner, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself and about my kids. I have 3. Jacob is my oldest. He's 25 right now, working at Starbucks and going back to school. On the right is my daughter Gabrielle. She's 23. She just graduated from ASU in May and is now working at Quicken Loans as a mortgage banker. And in the middle is my son Zachary, who would be 19 now, but he took his life in the middle of or at the end of his sophomore year when he was 16, almost 17 years old. So let me tell you just a little bit about who he was. Zachary was pretty much your typical kid. Growing up, he was my youngest. They often say the youngest is the funniest. He was. He was an animal advocate, loved animals. He loved, all three of my kids like math, but he really loved math. He loved the Rubik's Cube. He loved Monopoly, never lost a game of Monopoly, ever. He was an annoying little brother. He always had money. He always had businesses. He was an entrepreneur from the youngest of ages. He was extremely kind. He was a very, very kind kid. And interestingly enough, we did a presentation today at one of the schools, and there was a mom there. You know, and as a mom, we all know, we like to think our kids are kind and sweet and whatnot, but this mom came up to me after and she said, I just want you to know I knew Zach. He used to walk our dogs. He was the kindest kid. He was really kind, very empathetic, which came back to hurt him in the end, but he was very, very, very empathetic. What else? He loved golf. He loved lake life. We had a cabin in Minnesota, loved to be on the lake, and he was just a great kid. The middle of his sophomore year, he had his very first breakdown. My daughter was getting ready to go on a birthright trip to Israel. Her clothes were strewn all over my bed, and she's a girl, so she was just flipping out. She'd never been out of the country. They were leaving to go to California the next day to see their dad first, and then she was gonna fly from there, and so she just didn't know what to do. And Zach, right now, is a single mom. Zach comes in and he sprawls over the bed and says, I need help studying for my final right now. And Gabrielle was like, get off the bed, get off my clothes, and wait your turn. And I said, yeah, let me just finish with her and I will come help you. You know, it was that time of night, it was busy, everybody needed something. And he got up and he went across the room, across the house to his room, and he slammed the door. And he sent me a text, really long, in all caps. And it said, don't bother contacting me. Don't come looking for me, don't help me. You don't love me, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. Nothing you do at this point is gonna convince me that you do, so just leave me alone. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I said, listen, Gab, you know, finish up, let me go see what's going on. So I went across the house, I knocked on the door, he would not answer the door. I tried to get in, the door was locked. I texted him, I was like, Zach, I'm here, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize it was so important. Nothing, silence. And I remember feeling like something's wrong. And I said, Zachary, really, please let me in, honey, I'm here to help you, I'll help you study whatever you need. And he really didn't answer me, he wouldn't, nothing. And I said, fine, I'm gonna sit right here. I sat outside his door, on the ground against the wall. And I said, I'm gonna sit right here until you're ready for me. And about 45 minutes into it, panicking, thinking, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's happening and I don't know what to do, but I'm just gonna wait here. And I heard a crash. And that was his first attempt at suicide. And he came out of that room hysterically crying. And he said, Mom, I care so much about other people. Why doesn't anybody care about me? And hearing that your child feels that way is the most awful thing in the world. And I asked, when I told the story today in a classroom, I said to kids, right at this point, have you ever felt like that? And they all said, yeah. It's not so uncommon, and as parents, we don't want to believe it. What's happening? I said, honey, there are so many people that love you and care about you. But at that moment, that's how he felt. We talked a lot that night, and he told me that he had been sitting by himself in the media center at high school for about the last 2 or 3 months. And he had a group of friends who are great kids. I love all of them still today, who he grew up with through elementary school. And this group of boys would sit together at the table and they'd tease each other because they were boys in high school. Nobody meant anything by it. But for some reason, there was a day that he was the butt of the jokes, and it just got to him. And he couldn't process it, and he couldn't figure out why it was bothering so much. He thought it was him, maybe he was overreacting. He went and sat in the media center by himself. His friends really never went looking for him, because either they figured like, oh gosh, Zach, or maybe they figured he wanted to go eat lunch with somebody else, or they didn't really think about it. And so here he was for 2 or 3 months, feeling really alone and isolated, and he never said anything to me about it until that night. So he'd been suffering for a few months like this, silently by himself. So if there was a survey added then where a kid felt like, he wasn't being heard at school, he would have said yes, and they would have asked me as a parent, do you think your kid is not being heard at school? I would have said no, right? Because the kids aren't always talking to us. So the next day was finals, and he went to take his last final. He had an awful day in school. He had a breakdown in one of his classes. Teacher called me. We talked about what had happened the night before. Thank God she called me. And we talked about what happened the night before. She was really supportive of him, got him through the day. And they came home, and they're supposed to go to California, right? And now, as a parent, I'm sitting here thinking, what do? I don't know what to do. Do I send him to California? Do I not send him to California? I didn't know what to do. And the reason I didn't know what to do or who to call was because there's such a stigma attached to mental health that I didn't know what the best practices were because nobody talks about it. So if he had broken his leg, I would know exactly what to do, right? Not because my child has broken their leg before, but because I know a lot of people whose kids have broken their legs, and I know you go to the hospital, you get a cast, it's on for 6 weeks, then it gets taken off, kids write all over it. You know what happens. But when it's a mental health breakdown, you don't. And you don't know where to go. And as a parent, it's an awful feeling to think that you're the only one. I let him go to California. And I took that time to try to find him some help, right? Because that's my job now. And again, as I can vividly remember sitting on my bed, holding the phone, thinking, I honestly don't know what the first phone call is. Who do I call? I called my friend who's a pediatrician. I called another friend that I happen to know that's in substance abuse. Those were that's who I knew to call. They both really didn't know where to send me, but they actually both recommended the same person. So I called her, and she was happy to see us in May. So this is December. She's happy to see us in May. And even with some strings pulled, we weren't getting in. So I made the appointment anyway, not knowing if I would find anybody before May, and I kept calling around. I couldn't find anybody. So we finally had to go with somebody who was out of network. That first visit, I want to say, was $600 for the first hour. But what are you going to do? This is your kid. So he came back, and we took him to that doctor. My pediatrician, by the way, put him on a medication. She didn't know. I mean, she's not a mental health provider, but she put him on a medication that she guessed might work. I tell kids all the time, you know your own body. And sometimes antibiotics don't work, right? Sometimes you're allergic to certain medications. You know your body better than anybody. Speak up if the medication doesn't feel right. He was put on this medication, and it wasn't the right medication for him. Sometimes it's trial and error, and he got worse. We went to the psychiatrist who wanted to keep him on that medication a couple more weeks just to see if it happened to be, just him ramping up, or if it really wasn't the right one for him. And it wasn't the right one for him. And he was getting worse. He literally couldn't leave my side. He couldn't go to school. He couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk out of the house without him coming with me. He had to be with me at all times. Couldn't be out of my sight. And at that point, it was time for him to go into the hospital. And he willingly went to the hospital because all he wanted was his life back. He was scared. He really wanted to live. He did not understand what was happening to him. So he went into the hospital. He was at Banner Behavioral for 2 weeks. He worked really, really hard there. He said, I'm here once. I'm not coming back. So I'll do whatever they tell me to do. I just want my life back. And he worked really hard, and in 2 weeks, they felt like he was ready to go home and do some intensive outpatient programming, and he did. He went to a program called DBT. When he came out of the hospital, it took him 3 days to tell me that when he turned his phone on, he He had no texts, no messages, no voicemails, no emails. And at this point in the talk, I usually ask kids, why do you think that is? And kids will say because people didn't know he was in the hospital, or they didn't have his number, or no, it's because people didn't know what to say to him. There's such a stigma, nobody knows what to say. It's really awkward to reach out. Now, my phone was blowing up. I mean, it got to the point where I had to have a couple of my friends field all my calls because I couldn't keep up with it. But how do you think he felt? Because he was hearing crickets. And literally, I'm telling you, last week I was going through some old papers for something else, and I came across a folder that was misplaced. It was a folder from the hospital. And I opened it, and in the folder was a folded up note that had been opened and closed so many times. And it was the one thing he got in the hospital was from his brother. And it was just a note that said, hey, I'm working tonight, so I can't come see you, but I know Mom's coming, and I hope you're getting better, and you're so strong, and I just can't wait for you to come home. I'll take you out for ice cream, and all this stuff, and just work at it, buddy, you're gonna be okay. And here's 3 riddles, and I'll tell you the answers when I see you, on the other side, kind of thing. That's the only communication he got in the hospital. And it's not because people didn't care, right? People just don't know what to say. They're just not thinking about it, right? They're not necessarily versed or well-versed in empathy. So he came out of the hospital, he was feeling like that. He did wind up going back to school part-time, half days. He went to this DBT program, which was amazing, dialectical behavioral therapy. He went 3 days a week, 3 nights, 3 nights a week, 3 hours a night, 3 times a week for 10 weeks. He missed 1 for a fever, I think. He learned great coping skills, amazing things. I believe every kid should go through this program, personally. And one of the things he learned was to create a life worth living. When he came out of the hospital after seeing that second doctor, because the doctor that you see initially is not the doctor that you see once you're in the hospital, comes out of the hospital, we finally found somebody in our insurance, we're on doctor number 3 now. She was not good. Again, we tell kids that sometimes doctor-patient relationships don't work, and that's okay. We'll find somebody else. I never canceled that appointment in May, right? So we saw this woman in March, it wasn't great, it would get us to May. Meanwhile, he was still in DBT and he was in therapy, so we were okay on meds, we thought. They put him on an antidepressant and he was starting to feel a little bit better. He created, his life worth living was walking dogs. He was a huge animal advocate. So for him, he found his, what we call self-love language, was walking dogs, spending time with animals. That was his thing. And we all know that he was such an entrepreneur, he had to make money, that he created this business called Perfect Walker and Pet Sitting. And actually the woman that I met today who knew Zach, turns out she was one of his clients. I had no idea, but she walked his dogs. Anyway, so he created this business and he was feeling really good about it. And his dad, every day his dad would call and say, did you go to the gym? I sent her for the gym. Did you go to the gym today? You should go to the gym today. If you go to the gym, you'll feel better. And I realized that everybody at that point has their own sort of self-love language, right? So parents have theirs and kids have theirs. Know what your kids' self-love language is and help to support that, right? Because every day Zachary would say, please make it stop. I don't want to go to the gym, I just want to walk dogs. So we try to teach kids also to identify what their self-love languages are so that they know how to calm themselves down. I was telling the kids today that right now for me it's Candy Crush because I really, for some reason, like that explosion. It just, I don't know. For now, that's what it is for me. And you know what? That's what it is. If that's what helps me calm down at night, that's what it is. And so he loved this so much. After the 3rd doctor, a couple months later, it was May now, and we went to this 4th doctor, the one that was really highly recommended. We went to go see her, and it turns out she's a nurse practitioner, and did not spend very much time with us at all. And Zach said, I'm feeling better. I'm not feeling great, but I am feeling better. And she said, well, maybe we need to increase your medication a bit. So she did. She increased his medication. And over the next couple of weeks, he started to swing the other way. So I started to feel like something was wrong again. I felt like I couldn't put my finger on him. Like, we were like ships passing in the night. He was out walking dogs when I was home, and then, he was home when I was out doing something, and we weren't connecting, and it didn't feel good. And he called one night from a client's house crying, and he said, you know what, Mom, I think I'm manic. Like, something doesn't feel right. My thoughts are racing, my dreams are vivid, I'm spending too much money, he had gotten his hair cut really nicely, it was all those classic signs. And I said, okay, we have an appointment with the doctor tomorrow, we'll take care of it tomorrow, we'll address it. And we went to talk to his psychiatric provider, and she said at that point, perhaps he needs to be on a mood stabilizer, but at least let's lower back down his antidepressants, which I'd already done, and let's see what happens in a couple of weeks. And we didn't have a couple of weeks. So the night that he died, he'd been taking care of a woman's cats. She'd been out of town in Minnesota for 3 weeks, and he'd been taking care of these cats for 3 weeks. And he had locked one of the cats that day behind a door, and he had to break the door to get the cat out. And he panicked. So he went to Home Depot, all back and forth all day long apparently, as we saw from the receipts in his wallet, and tried to get that door fixed. He tried everything he could to fix that woman's door. He didn't tell me, didn't reach out to me. He reached out to a friend, he reached out to a locksmith, but didn't reach out to me. And about 8 or 8:30 that night, I think I texted him and I said, Zachary, it's time to come home, because he was in summer school the next day, now it was June, taking PE to make up some classes. And also he'd not been feeling well, he got strep throat. I said, it's time to come home. And he said, okay, give me about an hour, half hour, an hour, and I'll be home. And I said, okay. About an hour later, he sent a text to 8 of us saying, I love you so much. Thank you for everything you've ever done for me. You've all been so good to me. And I jumped up, and my daughter was in the living room with her best friend, and she jumped up, and I called, and I said, Zachary, and he answered. I said, Zachary, what is going on? He said, Mom, hang up. I don't want you to hear this. And I knew in my heart at that moment. And we got in the car, and we ran to the house, and he found a loaded gun in this woman's house. And he took his life in an extremely manic moment. He was misdiagnosed, he was bipolar, and he was on the wrong medication. After he died, the provider that we went to in the DBT program sent us back all our copays, right? They knew, it's nobody's fault, right? It was nobody's fault. He died from mental illness. He tried to beat that disease, just like some cancer patients. He didn't beat the disease. But when I take a look at that story, for me, it all comes back to stigma. It all comes back to stigma. We're not talking about mental health. We're not talking about mental illness. We're not sharing best practices. We're not teaching kids how to reach out to each other. We're not teaching kids how to stand up for themselves and advocate. We're not teaching them what to do if somebody comes to them, a peer comes to them and isn't feeling well. We're not giving them the right resources. We're not talking about it. And it's really, really important that we shatter the stigma and teach kids that mental health is just as important as physical health, and just as common, right? There are going to be days where we're going to be sad. There are going to be days that we have tragedies or traumas, little traumas, big traumas. They're going to happen. So what are we going to do about it? We have emergency if we think we're catching a cold, but you know you're going to get a cold. You know what's going to happen. Well, you're going to be sad too. So do you know what to do when you're sad? And when you get a cold, usually it'll pass, right? But what if it turns into bronchitis? When it turns into bronchitis, you go to the doctor. So it's the same thing with sadness. If it turns into something that doesn't feel right, you go get help. There's nothing to be guilty or ashamed about. We ask kids all the time, do you know what the word stigma means? Let's talk about what the word stigma means. Because everybody in the classroom has felt that way at one time or another, but they think they're the only ones. So we have developed what's called the Penny Pledge. Zachary was a coin collector, and we found thousands of pennies when he died. So we're gonna pass out pennies now. We do what's called the Penny Pledge with kids, because pennies, while they seem so insignificant, collectively really matter. They matter individually and they matter collectively. Today, over 7,000 people have taken the Penny Pledge. It's a lot of people, right? It's a lot of people who learned to reach out, to stand up for themselves, and to be that safe and caring person that others can talk to. Paradise Valley High School builds them for us, and and we wear them so that other people see us wearing them. They know they can talk to us. They know they can come to us. So we're going to pass out some pennies. With these pennies come a card. I'll bring these over here too, and I want to show them a card. Come this card that has the pledge on the front of it. But these amazing resources on the back. Teen Lifeline is huge, right? Huge. Kids are never alone. They can text. They don't have to be in crisis. If they just want to talk about something, they can text. The ages for the text and the phone calls at Teen Lifeline are younger and younger and younger. They're around 10 years old now. That's young. That's young. But at least they're reaching out, right? I wish that when Zachary was going through what he was going through, I wish I'd known about any of these resources. I wish Zachary had known about these resources. He did learn about them when he was in DBT, but that's not preventative. I wish he would have known about it during those couple of months ahead of time when he was feeling alone and he didn't know what to do. So, does everybody have pennies? So we're all going to take the Penny Pledge together, and this is what I tell kids all the time. You don't have to take the pledge, but if you take it, please take it seriously. So, hold on to your pennies. I pledge to reach out to the kid in the corner. Smile, say hi, ask where they've been. I pledge to take care of my own mental health. To know it's okay to not be okay, and it's a strength to ask for help. And I pledge to wear my penny proudly, so that other people know I'm a safe and caring person to talk to. And so what we do is we have three pillars, right? We educate and spread awareness. We promote contagious kindness. And we connect the community to resources and connect kids to community. We really believe that we have to start these conversations, right? If it's mentionable, it's manageable. The problem is we're not talking about it. Kids are not talking about it. Educators are not talking about it. I've had kids say to me, my favorite teacher said to me after I was better, she knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to say. She was like, I wish when I wasn't feeling well, she would have said to me, I noticed that you're not okay. Sometimes it's just that acknowledgement, right? Just saying, I know you're not okay. Or I noticed that something's wrong, was there anything I can help you with? So it's really important that we have these conversations. So we educate and spread awareness. We do parent presentations like this. We have programming in schools from K through 12. Right now we're super focused on K through 6th and middle school. I know in Scottsdale it's 6th through 8th is middle school. We've hit all the middle schools in Paradise Valley, almost all the middle schools, and a lot of the K through 12. We don't talk about suicide below 5th grade, but K through 4, we talk a lot about kindness, empathy, what it means to reach out to each other, what it means to have a bad day. How do you handle when you're having a bad day? And what it means if a friend comes to you and says, I'm feeling really sad today. How do you help them? How do you advocate for them? How are you empathetic with them? and how do you support them and actively listen to them. We promote contagious kindness. Everything needs to come from a place of kindness. This is a huge culture shift that just has to happen. We have a different kindness theme every single month. We have 4 big community kindness projects every year, and we do a kindness activity at the end of every presentation with kids. The big one that we do is Kindness Rocks, and everything we do with intention. So it was about a month after Zachary died, my daughter was out with a friend having an awful night, terrible. And when she walked out of the restaurant, she looked down, there's a rock, and it said, "You're stronger than you think, pass it on." And it was anonymous, right? But she needed that rock. And we realized that it's those random acts of kindness, those positive words, those kind words, whether they come from someone you know or someone you don't, it can change the course of somebody's day or life. Always come from a place of kindness. And then connecting kids to community and community resources. We try at all times to have some type of community connectedness with our kindness projects and whatnot. But resources is a super important thing now, and we're really focused on that this year. You know, all the kids get all these resources. We have a great resource page on our website, and we're building an even stronger one now, so that there's even more information about, you know, what ages certain hospitals will take, and you know who the good providers are, and who takes insurance and who doesn't take insurance. And I never want anybody to have to start from zero where I started. That's our penny pledge, and this is how you can get involved. You can follow us on social media. We would love to come to the Scottsdale schools. We have some really great programming. We are at the point now where we're starting to develop and collect data so that we can measure how our program is working. I have so many testimonials, and I really believe it's working, but I really want to be able to say, you know, here's how many kids have, you know, they knew what stigma was, and you know, they didn't know what stigma was, and now they know. These are how many kids have actually reached out, who have gotten help. We know kids have gone into the hospital because of the program. I hear stories all the time, so we're going to try to measure that data now in a big real way. And that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? I know it's a really heavy topic. Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you frame the conversation with younger students in the elementary schools?
Yeah, so we have a book, it's called, I think it's called, What Does It Mean to Be Kind? So the story is about a little girl, her name is Tanisha, and she spills grape juice on herself. And so, you know, she's not planning on having a bad day, but guess what? She's having a bad day. Everybody laughs, and she runs out of the room. Her friend next to her doesn't know how to help her. She's not sure what to do to be kind to her. Should she spill grape juice on herself? Should she draw a picture? Should she tell her art's her favorite class? Should she run after her? She tries to talk to the girl, but the girl's not ready to talk yet. And she realizes she just needs to sit with her and sort of be with her. And so it sparks a conversation on how it's not always so intuitive or easy to help your friend, but how can we help our friends? And if we do spill grape juice on ourselves, we're gonna have a bad day. It's okay. But how do we handle that? You know, what's our self-love language? Who's our safe and caring person to talk to? Why might, you know, we ask kids, why might she be upset? Well, maybe her mom's gonna get mad that she spilled grape juice, you know, maybe she feels cold and wet. You know, why are some of the reasons that she may be? And it sparks a lot of conversation around how to reach out, how to take care of yourself, and how to be that safe and caring person to talk to. Any other questions?
So you said you'll come and talk to like other parent groups or schools?
Yep. Yep, we'll go anywhere. The program's free. We do a lot of fundraising so that we can, we apply for grants. I believe that it should be free to schools. I think every kid needs access. Every kid needs to hear it. And then we're developing, we're almost to the point where we're ready to deliver some follow-up programming now. So we have the curriculum all set, and it's a program, so we'd come back 3 more times after doing a program like this, and the first program would be, or the first follow-up module would be around how to reach out. So there's a lot more work and discussion about how to reach out to somebody, when to reach out to somebody, what are empathetic statements, when are some of the times that it's awkward, what are some of the situations that you might think not to reach out, or you never thought to reach out but should reach out. So we do a whole module on that. The second module is how to take care of yourself, you know, what your self-love language is, who your safe person to talk to is, coming up with some coping strategies when you are having a bad day, sort of talking about when it's time to escalate it and that kind of thing. And then the third one is about what do you do when someone comes to you and says, listen, I want to hurt myself. How do you actively listen and validate them? And when do you escalate it? What resources can you use to help that person? So it's a 4-part program. Yep.
You said you've been focusing on teaching them how to advocate for themselves. Do you have any kind of like a set of questions or something like that that kids can take to a medical provider or something like that in order to help them to better understand potential reactions, if it's the wrong medication, you know, because obviously medication saves lives, but only when it's the right medication. So how, I mean, do you have something that allows them to feel comfortable having those conversations with their doctors? And
yes. So there's a couple of tools that we can use. We have an actual written tool that kids can kind of log that type of thing. But there's also some free online screenings that we can send them to that asks a bunch of questions that they can print out and then take with them, so that they can advocate for themselves. Kids will tell you, you know, especially the kids who aren't 18, that, you know, we did a survey last year of 100 kids, and kids will say, you know, they're not getting help because, or they're not telling their parents because they don't want to freak their parents out, they don't know that their parents will believe them, they think their parents don't have time or can't afford it. And I think some parents, like me, are scared of it because they don't know where to go or what to do. And maybe if we don't, maybe it'll just go away. Because we're all so busy, maybe it'll just go away. And so getting kids to kind of talk about it and being able to wrap their minds around it and try to advocate for themselves to get that help is really important. And they're afraid of saying things in counseling or therapist's office, you know, that their parents might be upset about. So it's about teaching them that they have their own rights. You know, they have their own. There are contracts they can make up with their providers that will keep their, you know, confidentiality and make it, you know, it's trust. There's so much behind it. Anybody else? Yeah.
Just when you go into schools, is like logistically, is it the principal that reaches out to you and asks you to come in? Do they want to preview what you're gonna say to the kids? How does that, like, what's the process?
So it varies. A lot of schools will just call us and say, you know, sometimes it'll be a kid in a school and then the parent is a teacher somewhere else and she's heard about the program and she's like, well, you know, I talked to my principal, can you come to our school? And it's just kind of mushroomed that way. We haven't really done a lot of cold calling yet because we've just been getting booked. But yeah, I mean, you know, we would probably reach out to principals and at some point and say, here's our program. And we have a video now, which I think is on your Facebook page, that was just produced by Matter Film that shows a little bit about what we do, and it shows us in one of the schools and stuff like that.
Did you say on your website you have resources for parents, like how to navigate from the doctor and medical?
Yep.
Because for me, I think for parents and people that I know, that's probably one of the biggest challenges.
Absolutely.
What you talked about, you know, you'll find someone that is working full time, their insurance coverage is a $5,000 deductible. They don't know if it's that serious, if they really should take their child.
That's right.
You know. So if I can point them to your website where you can kind of it guides them, that would be great.
Yes, and we're expanding that website to include even more things and even more steps along the path that don't seem so far away. It's not a big jump. There's smaller steps that you can take. So we're working on that's one of our focuses in 2020 is work on that resource page.
I just have a question for the district, but my kids are still little, so I don't know as they get older. Is there anything within our curriculum that teaches some of those things to kids about what do you do if a kid comes to you saying they want to harm themselves, or is that part of our, and is there any general screening for these kids that may be at risk? I just, like if you go into the hospital, they screen you and ask you a bunch of questions, but that's a one-time episode. So I know over time, over your school career, is there any screening, or are we just looking for people to identify kids that are?
Well, so there are some screenings, but one of the things that we're learning, if you look at some of the statistics, it will tell you kids are talking to kids, right? So, like again, when we heard about those statistics of kids are saying this is happening and parents are saying no, it's not, because kids are talking to kids. They're not necessarily talking to parents or safe adults. And sometimes kids don't understand who that safe adult is, right? It may not be the parent. And that's okay too. And so teaching kids what to do when another kid comes to them and says, I want to hurt myself is really, really important.
Is that happening?
From a district perspective, as I'm Kim Guerin, I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services. So there's many programs in different schools. One of them is student assistance programs, where you see if a student is struggling, they meet with a trained adult. It's a program that Cheryl Watkins has developed, and it's that connection, that adult. We also do a lot of individual check-in, check-out. When a student needs a mentor or a specific connection, we have that availability. We also work with different organizations, such as Jewish Family Services provides counseling. As Dr. Creekart said, we're partnering with the Charos and the ASU Watts Social Worker College to get social workers to come in. It's definitely a growth area for us. We know we're under-resourced from the state. We were lucky to get 2 grants. Every single school applied for a social worker counselor grant. We were lucky to get 2.
Right, and this is just another level, right? It's just another layer. So, absolutely. Right, so we need all those adults and professionals. They're ready to take on these students, but if you just whisper to her, like, I cut today, and she doesn't say anything, nobody's gonna know.
Right.
So it's just another layer of protection.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the proactive work you're doing at the elementary schools, because we have to develop coping mechanisms.
Right. From the early ages.
To know it's okay to ask for help.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Do we also have a mental health showcase or fair coming up? Please. I know it's usually held in this room. I don't know.
I don't have
I think it's in March. I was in a meeting earlier today, the Scottsdale Youth Community Coalition, and Shannon, I'm sorry, don't remember her last name, talked about it.
Okay, have you been? Were you here last year?
I wasn't.
Well, hopefully you.
You should have a table, Francine.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be great. I think so. Yeah, I understand. All over the valley, people come to this.
Yeah.
So I actually came to it when I was with another district. It's really well known.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. We'll be there. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Anybody else?
Right.
Yes.
As a former principal, I just want to thank you so much, and that you take something so hurtful and tragic and make others' life better, because I'll tell you, I've had kids from kindergarten, from preschool, all the way to 5th grade that have made those type of threats. And it is about building those relationships. And what gets really scary is when they finally tell you and say, oh, promise me you won't tell my mom and dad.
Right, exactly.
That's the hard part.
Exactly.
But also I know as an adult, that's not a decision they're equipped to make. I need to make
Right,
that.
exactly.
And the one last thing I want to say is that whenever a child would come to me completely distraught, the first question I would ask them, tell me somebody in the world that just can't live without you.
That's right.
And that right away they start and they get, oh, my mom, is that it? Oh my God, and my Tia, and my this and that, and before you know it, it's like 10, 15 people, and I say, write it down.
Exactly.
And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for your input. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you for listening. I know it's not an easy topic to hear, but I appreciate you all being here. Thanks.
Thank you guys for coming. Our next meeting is in February. Is it? Will someone help me out? Is it February 12th? The 12th in the morning, 9:30 a.m. I just have to open it. And it's actually going to be about physical wellness, which also has a lot to do with this as well. Patty Hilbrey will be here, and we have Karen that is well-versed in policy, and she's going to be here. We're going to have a panel of experts to ask questions to. That's it. That's great.